Hey guys, it's Fungo. I know it's been a while, whatever. This is actually my second take recording. The first take got lost in time. If you don't know what I mean, you will later. Well, I decided to pick up the new 3DS along with two games I'm completely unfamiliar with. Majora's Mask 3D and Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, and this is a choice I do not regret. As a complete noob to these games, and considering I've been feeling really unproductive playing these games and not doing something about it, I thought it'd be interesting if I did some sort of triple play review, and perhaps answer the question, is it worth the money, if not just for these two launch titles? Well, I'm about to answer that, starting first with my review of Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. First, I can tell you this game kind of jumps the gun a little in the title. Monster Hunter Tri came out on the Wii, and then 3 Ultimate for the Wii U and 3DS. Makes sense as it was a re-release with more content. In this case, Capcom wanted to make sure you knew it was Ultimate on day one, despite being exclusive to the 3DS. It's not unlike Capcom to release it on the Wii U later as some Super Ultimate Deluxe Extreme Edition, but I wouldn't count on a Wii U release. Executive producer Ryozo Sugimoto says, one of the key features of the Wii U version was online multiplayer, and this time we have been able to implement online multiplayer on the 3DS. So you can play local matches when you're out and about, or when you have a Wi-Fi connection, you can play online. So we felt that the 3DS version was complete as it was with this feature set. He just doesn't want to admit that it was easier to keep it a 3DS game as they developed it with low-res portable graphics in mind. I admit, I have played a couple hours of Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate and Tri, and it just didn't engage me. Now that doesn't mean it's a bad game, it just threw me in with a minimal set of tutorials. And I'm not a guy that necessarily needs tutorials in games, but Monster Hunter is very different. It can make you feel pretty incompetent as a gamer if you don't have the patience to learn the ins and outs. That being said, Monster Hunter 4 corrects that problem and overloads you with plenty of tutorials, making it a good starting point for beginners to the series. Then, if you like what you see, you can work your way backwards. Veterans have the choice to turn these tutorials off so they can get right to the action. There's no long-running storyline to worry about. In fact, Monster Hunter 4 has almost no storyline besides the character dialogue. It is a video game in the purest sense of the word, focusing mostly on gameplay, exploration, and customization without burdening you with unnecessary cinematics and plot, like the newly released The Order 1886, which does the exact opposite, trying to engage you in the subpar story with lengthy, unskippable cutscenes, QTE, and very little gameplay. What's so addictive about the Monster Hunter series is, well, hunting monsters. Also, the exploration and item gathering to combine and build more powerful items and equipment to make your character look really cool or sexy. You start out in a village taking requests, then launch into the terrain to complete said quests, killing a variety of monsters with whatever class of weapon you decide to choose. One of the new ones to the series being the Glaive, which is extremely awesome and fun to use as it launches you up in the air for sweet aerial attacks, making you look really badass. Another addictive quality to the gameplay has to do with the giant monsters you encounter, which mimic the adrenaline-fueled rush from games such as Dragon's Dogma or Shadow of the Colossus when taking on the beast. I'd say the closest brother to Monster Hunter is the Dark Souls series, believe it or not. In this game though, the monster can take a while to beat, running away from time to time to rest or eat. And through exploration you obtain a slew of inventory items that can be used strategically in taking down the monster through poisoning their meat or various traps in order to catch it. The rewards are great when damaging their head, cutting off their tail or catching them alive, making a lot more incentive to hunt smart, rather than just swing away until dead. What Monster Hunter 4 adds to the formula is the ability to mount the monster by gaining some aerial advantage, which is beyond fun to do, and very funny to watch all your teammates back up and wait, because when the monster is kicking like a rodeo bull, it can do some serious damage, and they want you to get the crippling bonus. What was removed were the water-based battles, which is a letdown, and the variety in monster design has suffered a bit, but water combat was disorienting and weird for me anyway, so no major loss. After doing so many quests, you are rewarded with expeditions and can seek out new monsters and items through exploration, then eventually make your way to a new village, fighting even stronger monsters. Rinse and repeat. It's a very simplistic process, but extremely gratifying in the long run. Nothing beats the Dark Souls-ish feeling of defeating a foreign monster after a half an hour of persistence. When you get bored of single player, there are guild quests where you can lobby up with 3 other random people online and take down monsters in a pack, which adds a new dimension of satisfaction, being able to show off to other people your skills, weapons, armor, and abilities. The game also creates a bond to the players you lobby up with through hardship. My biggest complaint with the game are the graphics, which look like they haven't advanced at all since the first Monster Hunter on PS2. Now, graphics never really mean anything to me unless it takes away from the gameplay or takes me out of the game entirely. In this case, there are a lot of jaggies and blurry textures that become all the more apparent with the 3D turned on.
You look like Clint Eastwood when you're playing that.
Get off my lawn. You hear me? I said get off my lawn. Yeah, I'd shoot a hole in your face. Then I'd go back in the house. And I'd sleep like a baby. You can count on that. The game is at such a poor resolution, it makes me feel like I need glasses. Majora's Mask 3D, created many years ago on the Nintendo 64, looks better than this game by far, although it does have upgraded visuals. Resident Evil Revelations shows off just what the system is capable of, yet no one has been able to reach that level of graphical fidelity. You're also going to love this, but my complaint about graphics comes from playing on the new 3DS. If you plan on playing this game on the old 3DS, the graphics are even worse. It's really bad. Also, there's a really disconnected feeling due to tons of clipping issues. Weapons clip through armor, objects clip through objects, and the worst offender is when characters clip through enemy corpses. It looks terrible and it bugs me. This is 2015. Graphics aside, let me talk about a few things I don't like about the gameplay and multiplayer. What's the most frustrating in this game is when you get stuck in an attack, fall, or stun animation and quickly go from full health to 0 health without any control over it. In this case, it's not about skill. You can't help it. Granted, there are ways to improve your stats and reduce animation times, but as you do, the enemies get stronger and faster. The long attack animations make it hard to avoid enemy attacks during warning signs of one, and there's no way to cancel out. I'd prefer the Dark Souls 2 formula of being able to cancel an animation and dodge if possible, or even the added invincibility frames during a dodge. I do like the strategy of getting someone out of a stun lock by hitting or kicking them. It makes for good teamwork. I hate each area being divided up between loading screens. The game would be so much nicer if it was one big seamless open world. Sometimes the monsters like to camp by the loading point for the next area and knock you into it, making you sit through 2 loading screens while all the action is happening. It's also pretty embarrassing. I do like the formula this game has, but I'm curious to how much of a masterpiece this game could be if reworked from the ground up with better AI and an open world instead of being an exact clone of the last 3 games. The multiplayer works really well. Sometimes there's lag, just like on the Wii ports, that creates instances where you and your partner are fighting the same monster on opposite sides of the field. My biggest complaint is that you cannot communicate online via keyboard while on a quest. Instead, you only get a few preset customizable message slots. The keyboard should be allowed all the time. This is very inhibiting and dampens the multiplayer experience. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is a really good game though, and it has plenty to offer, and it's easy to dump several hundred hours into it. It has plenty of monsters, armor, weapons, ranks to climb, and it's a good time waster. Hours just fly by. All in all though, if you like really addictive PS2 era games and aren't much for innovation, love the Dark Souls big boss fights item collecting formula, or you are already a Monster Hunter fan and are looking for something portable to waste countless hours on, you'd love this game. Because this was my first game in the series, I was fine with the same old formula, loading in between areas, long animations, and lack of next generation gameplay mechanics, but I can see veterans of the series being disappointed in the lack of anything new here, and in fact see it as a massive downgrade from the Wii U port. I hope Monster Hunter 5 implements some of the ideas I just tossed out and doesn't just recycle the whole formula yet again. I'd really love to see a truly next-gen Monster Hunter game in my lifetime. Here's a quick rundown. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate has an addictive 100+ hours of gameplay. It's tons of fun and has great online co-op, but it has bad graphics, which are even worse on the old 3DS. And there's not much innovation from what I've seen of the past games. But it is recommended. I do recommend it. Definitely. Especially if you're new. Now let's talk about the new 3DS. In my many hours with the new 3DS, I have to say it's pretty much like the old 3DS, just with a complete redesign. It's pretty much like what the PSP did. You know, re-releasing a new generation, PSP 1000, PSP 2000, PSP 3000. It's pretty much like that. Only they didn't resell it and market it as something new. And I think that's kind of the issue I have with it. The few new features in Xenoblade Chronicles 3D being the one and only confirmed exclusive game for it doesn't make it a day one purchase unless you really love Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii and need to play it portably. What I don't get is why they didn't just replace the old 3DS with the new one, like the PSP did. Now they sell both side by side with a slight price difference. It's like Nintendo to sell completely out of the old 3DS instead of recalling and disassembling for parts. Those misers. There's nothing more confusing to the average consumer than the 3DS XL right next to the new 3DS XL. I mean, they're both technically new in the box, and then when used, what are you going to call it? A used new 3DS XL. I can't wait to see how many complaints there are going to be when Xenoblade comes out. People buy it, and then they try to use it in their old 3DS to no avail. And then they're either stuck with it, or have to trade it in at a financial loss. And Nintendo's not gonna care. I'm a picky consumer. I do my research before I spend any money, but you can't expect the billions of other people out there to do the same. The new 3DS adds faster processing and more memory. Nintendo won't tell you how much faster, but they have shown evidence that it's faster when booting up games or downloading. It doesn't appear to be any faster in the menus, and large web pages still won't load completely, even with the doubling of RAM being 256 meg instead of 128 meg, and VRAM increasing from a measly 6 meg to a measly 10 meg. Nintendo's hardware has never been known for being technological or even logical. They know they got their fan base by the balls. Just look at their success with the highly sought after amiibos. Comparing the new system specs to the Vita at the same price, it makes the system look like poo. What does redeem Nintendo are the large quantities of fun, nostalgic, and childlike games that appeal to all ages far and wide, proving computing power is meaningless if you can make captivating games. They also add amiibo functionality to the new system, only intensifying the whole amiibo craze further. I tested it with a Toon Link, and it works good in Super Smash Bros., I guess. There's less functionality than I expected, and there's not a whole lot you can do with them besides level them up and change their avatar or attack moves. I'd collect them just for the sake of collecting. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with the new buttons and layout, but let me show you anyway. The new 3DS was completely redesigned, adding 2 Z buttons on the shoulder and a C-stick analog nub, basically combining the Circle Pad Pro with it, and removing the Wi-Fi on-off switch and SD card slot. The Z buttons are slightly elevated and work better than you'd expect, but the analog nub has its pros and cons. Well, first, it's a nub like that on a laptop. You tilt it up, down, left, and right, and it's pretty responsive except on my system. I tend to struggle with the down part a little. My problem with the nub is that it's too smooth and flat. So if you have sweaty gamer hands like me when really into the new Monster Hunter, your thumb will slip off constantly. And controlling the camera can be a pain. This problem could have been fixed if they rounded the nub off more and added a bumpy grip to it. The 3DS has never really been known for a comfortable design, and it pains me to say this figuratively and literally. The system just isn't built for large sweaty man hands nor games of Monster Hunter caliber. Honestly, I believe they couldn't have picked a worse modern day game system to put this game on. The PlayStation Vita would have been a lot more comfortable to control and is a more powerful system. I had to purchase a special grip imported from Japan as to minimize my hand cramping with the system, and all the grip did was make the C-stick harder to reach, localizing my hand cramping to thumb cramping. All in all, the grip did make things better for me. Looking at the new design of the new 3DS, you will see various improvements. The charging port is in the back where it belongs. The game cart slot moved to the front. The volume and 3DS slider is on the left and right of the main screen, making accidentally hitting that volume switch a thing of the past. The start and select buttons were moved to the right, which is good because I hated where they were situated before. The power button is on the bottom now. The main face buttons are a little larger now, which is good for my manly hands. It's an overall improvement to the original design. The only downfall is now you gotta open up the back of the system to change the memory, which is now converted to microSD, which is the standard in cell phones. And this change from SD to microSD can be an issue when transferring between systems and will take a long time if you do it wirelessly. The upside to this is now it's possible to change the battery on the system, extending its longevity when the battery finally craps out on you. The biggest of the new features with the new 3DS is its face tracking 3D that maintains the 3D no matter which angle you're viewing it from. It works great, And for the first time ever, I actually want the 3D on, as the depth perception gives me a slight advantage in Monster Hunter. I have had the face tracking mess up from time to time when there's a lot of sunlight beaming down, but surprisingly it works best in the dark. There were times I got so caught up in the admiration of the responsiveness of the 3D tracking that I'd stop whatever I was doing and tilt the screen back and forth in amazement, just like how a caveman would react to flame. I'd say the 3D looks the best in Majora's Mask, with the vibrant environments and beautiful artistic design. So, with everything I discussed, is the new Nintendo 3DS something you need to go out and buy right away, if not just for the C-Nub? I like to call it the C-Spot. No. Oh yeah. If you already own a 3DS, I'd say no. Just go out and buy yourself a Circle Pad Pro attachment, or better yet, a grip imported from Japan, made exclusively for Monster Hunter. That is, if you don't mind controlling the camera with your left index finger, which works better than you'd expect. Oh yeah. It's more comfortable and made for long hours of play with sweaty man hands. If you don't already own a 3DS, go buy this new one, it's worth it. And if you don't mind handheld portable games, the 3DS is a must-have system, no question. Now, the system is extremely limited when it comes to net play and friends, due to the fact that Nintendo is trying to make the system as safe as possible for children. And I never really liked the fact that you have to register friend codes to see anyone, and even if you do, you can only really see their online status and what game they're playing, and perhaps play with them online if they're playing online. Swap Note, which was an amazing feature, was discontinued. And I quote, this was because minors have been exchanging their friend codes on the internet and then using Swap Note to exchange offensive material. And if Nintendo's primary focus the last 10 years wasn't on children, I think their game systems would probably be better. But would they be as successful? Would Majora's Mask have even been made with its dark theme and disturbing characters? That's a question we gotta all ask ourselves. Now let's talk about Majora's Mask. I will admit, I have not seen anything nor played anything of Majora's Mask since it came out on the Nintendo 64 some 15 years ago, so I had no idea what to expect other than maybe it's like Ocarina of Time, only a little darker, because that's pretty much what it is. I think the reason I avoided it was because of all the negative comments I heard towards the 3-day loop you must play over and over again. But what I was never told was how dynamic the possibilities can be when able to start over and replay with fresh, new abilities obtained from all the different masks you collect. Also, what no one ever told me was how dark, haunting, and atmospheric the game is. The atmosphere of the game definitely appeals to me more than Ocarina of Time's bright and playful theme, which is effectively the exact opposite of Majora's Mask. The characters are dark and creepy, and when putting on the Deku mask, Link's screams are pretty disturbing. There's no question this game has some influence from the 1994 Jim Carrey movie The Mask. It also has an Alice in Wonderland vibe at the beginning. Plus, that moon is so hauntingly freaky. What a face! I love it! I found out that the people complaining about the 3-day cycle are just idiots and can't get the ocarina before the game ends. The only way you can get a game over in the first 3 days is if you suck at the game and don't treat it with a sense of urgency like you're supposed to. Everything is straightforward at the beginning with plenty of hints to help you out if you get lost. And you only really have to do some exploring and you'll find a way to slow time, which should make the game a little easier for everyone. Then you can learn more songs and that will allow you to manipulate time any way you want. The thing is, when you slow time, it only slows the clock. It's not like you actually slow time. You don't see people and enemies running around in slow motion. That would only make sense. And when you go back in time, you get to keep all the masks and special items you've obtained, which doesn't make sense at all, but also makes for a very unique and dynamic gameplay which couldn't have been done otherwise. I don't know how to say this, so I'm just gonna say it. I never really could understand what the big deal was with the N64 era Zelda games, as I never really found them to be that great, but I think I figured it out. People's nostalgic childhood memories tend to give them their admiration for the games. Not saying that they're not good, but I think that plays a large role in it. Considering I never even played an N64 until I was 19, that may be why I don't get it. I prefer the toon-style games with Wind Waker and the DS games, but I'm with the majority of people who hate the boring sailing bits in Wind Waker. My favorite Zelda games are A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. I prefer the over-the-top camera and major focus on dungeons and puzzles. I must say, I have enjoyed Majora's Mask more than Ocarina of Time. While both are good games, Majora's Mask has a darker theme that appeals more to me. The biggest problem I had with Majora's Mask, and this was a chief complaint about Dark Souls 2, is the complete lack of direction. The game is non-linear, and you're thrown in the middle of this non-linear world. To find out what you have to do requires wasting lots of time with aimless exploration and experimentation with items, which isn't dissimilar to the rest of the series, but this formula is not for everyone, and it's worsened by having to restart from the beginning every 3 in-game days and having to rebuy all your bombs and arrows and stuff. As you get to talking to people, you'll notice just about everyone has a sub-objective for you to complete, and not every sub-objective can be completed right away due to the lack of items, leading to a clusterfuck mess of sub-objectives and that seem impossible to keep track of. Good thing there's a journal you can reference if you really want to 100 complete that chiz. Another major problem is the monetary system. I have never played a Zelda game where rupees were so abundant. You are overwhelmed with rupees all the time, and you don't really have that many things to spend those rupees on, leading to the quests with the only incentive being rupees being pointless. I've saved over 1,000 rupees through regular exploration, and I don't know what to spend it on. I think I'll open my own restaurant. There aren't enough places to eat in Clocktown. All they got is milk and beans. That's no life. Like all Zelda games, the most fun can be had in the dungeons, and all in all, that's what anyone really plays for, isn't it? And the quirky dark art style is beautiful, and you won't forget your experience with this game, even if you're mildly into it. But like I said, I liked Wind Waker better and A Link to the Past the best. In short, Majora's Mask has a great, eerie art style that's impossible not to love that are bettered from the N64 version. This is a wonderful remake done with love. It's easy to immerse yourself in it, and is definitely a classic gem that is deserving of a purchase if you're a Legend of Zelda fan. The downsides are the mess of quests, the lack of direction to complete said quests, and the devalued rupees leading to lack of incentive. Well, that's all I have to say about that. In the end, the new 3DS is not something you need to run out and go buy right away. Oh my god, gotta have it, gotta have it! No! On the other hand, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate and Majora's Mask 3D are very good games. And only go for Monster Hunter 4 if you're looking for a game to dump lots of time into. Well, allow me to play you out. What's happening? Whoa! I didn't think that would actually work. I don't have to do the whole review over again, do I? Oh my god!